Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome at the press briefing and the two statements for media at the occasion of the visit of the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. First, let me give the floor to the Prime Minister, Petr Fiala. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am happy that after some time I again had a chance to welcome the President of the European Commission here in Prague. And I'm glad that apart from being together at the morning conference, we had a chance to have a working meeting here at the Office of the Government. And we had a chance to discuss important topics, important not only for Europe, but also for my government. We have discussed a number of issues, starting with energy and also touching on migration, and I'll mention some of those topics to more detail. I reminded the President of the European Commission that nuclear energy is really important for the Czech Republic. It's a traditional industrial sector for our country. We have many experts in our country and at our universities, and it's also one of the ways for our country to achieve the climate objectives and to have sufficient sources of energy. So that's why it is important that nuclear energy remains one of the preferred sources of energy, clean energy in the Czech Republic. And we're doing our best so that nuclear energy stays the accepted source of energy. We also talked with the President about the current state of affairs when it comes to our tender for building new units in nuclear power plant in Dukovany. So we're still waiting to evaluate the bids, and we also discussed the process, how to notify the European Commission, because that is a must, of course. We will need nuclear energy in the Czech Republic in the future. We will need new units. And we're also open to new technologies, such as small modular reactors. So from this perspective, the completion of the notification process is a huge priority for us. And I'm happy that after today's discussions with the President, I can see that there is a chance that we succeed with the notification process. We also talked about another project that is important for energy security of the Czech Republic and to finally get rid of the Russian fossil fuels for good, and that's the TAL Plus oil pipeline. We've already taken a number of steps and we need the final consent of the European Commission. Of course, we haven't discussed only energy, even though energy, of course, is a key topic for the future of Europe, the future of the Czech Republic. It's important for our country's competitiveness. But we also talked about other challenges and hot issues in Europe at present. For example, the current migration crisis, be it migration coming from the south, but also how we dealt with that huge number of refugees coming to us from Ukraine, which suffers under Russian aggression. The Czech Republic, when it comes to discussions about migration policy, is convinced that it is better and it is important to protect the external borders of the European Union, to decrease the number of economic refugees. It is better to do it on the border rather than deal with it than inside the European Union. We are ready to participate in protecting the external borders. Our objective is to stop people from getting on the journey at all, so that we stop the activity of all the smugglers. So that is also related to cooperation with third countries and speeding up the process of returns. And we, of course, supported the European Migration Pact provisions, but we also rejected any mandatory quotas when it comes to redistribution of refugees in the Czech Republic. We think it's inhumane and it doesn't work. We also talked about potential ways to support the countries that have to face the huge wave of Ukrainian refugees. And I am happy that the President perceives that as a huge challenge, not only for our society, but also for other Central European societies. And I'm happy that she's ready to help us and search for other ways to support us and help us. Let me also mention Euro 7, because that's another topic that we talked about briefly. The Czech Republic played a very important role in negotiating the review of Euro 7, of what it should look like in the end. We tried to assess the impact of Euro 7 on the Czech industry, and that's why we promoted a moderate wording of that regulation that would help us effectively cooperate, create a group of like-minded countries, and through all these means we managed to achieve a reasonable review of that standard. And I think it will be for the benefit of everybody. And we also discussed one more good news, but I'll leave it up to the President to tell you about it. And we touched on one more issue, which is important for the Czech Republic, and that's the support of Czechs and Czech citizens in European Union institutions and bodies. Thanks to other debates with the President and support on her side, we achieved certain success recently, mainly, when it comes to having Czech citizens in high positions in the EU institutions, and we'd like to continue in these efforts. And I'm happy that the President's team is working with our team to create a special action plan for that. And I believe it will bring more beneficial outcomes when it comes to Czech representation in the EU. I think it is important for the Czech public so that people see that our people have their place in European institutions. It also helps them to better accept what is happening in Brussels. Thank you. And let me give the floor to Madam President.
Minister, dear Petr, thank you for the warm welcome and for the good discussions. Indeed, congratulations to the fact that 2 Czech staff members have been promoted now to senior management. This shows the continuation of our excellent work and cooperation during the Czech presidency of the Council. A big success for Czechia. And you mentioned the Euro 7 decision yesterday. Congratulations. Thank you for your leadership in shaping a good compromise, which is a solid one, and I think we can move on the basis of this compromise. So thank you very much for the role Czechia played. Thanks to the many successes of your presidency, we have also made huge progress in the meantime on strategic files, and I wanted to mention 2 of them. The first is your rock-solid support to Ukraine. Since day one of Russia's brutal invasion, be it through the successive waves of sanctions against Russia or our financial support packages for Ukraine, all of this has been instrumental in helping Ukraine successfully resist the invasion, keeping the Ukrainian state running and preparing for reconstruction. And I know that Czechia as a whole is standing by the brave Ukrainian nation. Czech people have been welcoming those fleeing the war with open arms. This generosity honors your country. Europe will be forever grateful. And another success of your presidency concerns the energy transition. First and foremost, Repower EU. Repower EU is Europe's roadmap to energy independence as a response to the energy crisis unleashed by Russia. And indeed, I'm very glad to announce that we have approved today your revised Next Generation EU plan, including the new Repower EU chapter. The revised plan brings now 2.2 billion euros in additional funding for Czechia. This includes 736 million euros under Repower EU as investments in stronger electricity grid, more renewable energy, of course energy efficiency, very important also clean transport, and also very important the skills needed to succeed in the industrial transition, so a good package of 2.2 billion. The green transition is a necessity as much as an opportunity, and this is the path we have chosen to take together as a union. Nevertheless, very important, the choice of the energy mix is and will remain a national prerogative. We know that nuclear plays a central role in Czechia's energy system and that it will continue to require investment to play its role in the Czech energy transition. And this is why we are always willing to consider state aid, of course, provided the conditions are right, but this is important. And this is also why we support cutting-edge nuclear technology under our Net Zero Industry Act to boost innovation and cross-border cooperation. And yes, we also discussed migration, and I can underline what you've said, Prime Minister, dear Petr. This is a phenomenon that concerns the whole of Europe, and it needs a European response, including here in Czechia. We want indeed to support member states in managing migration effectively and humanely. We are going to see how we can help Czechia in this context, in particular because you have welcomed Ukrainian refugee. We have proposed a very targeted increase of 15 billion euros specifically to help member states manage migration, like, for example, Czechia. These 15 billion is part of our proposed revision of the so-called multi-annual EU budget. We are, of course, open to discussing potential improvements to our proposal, but ultimately our support to Czechia and other member states depends on our capacity to agree on a revision of the EU budget. Otherwise, there simply won't be enough funding available, and therefore I'm very grateful that I know I can count on Czechia's support in driving forward the discussion in a constructive manner. So thank you very much again for hosting me here. I'm very much looking forward to see you next week at the European Council in Granada. Thank you very much.
Děkuji za obě prohlášení a vám děkujeme za pozornost.
Thank you and have a nice evening. Have a nice afternoon.